I find among leftists, feminism and political correctness is a topic that causes a lot of divide. While most agree that feminism is an interlinked part of socialism, I find the difference comes from what different people think that feminism is. And the thing is with this is it doesn't actually matter what type of leftist you are. It can be anarchist, Leninist, or even SOCDEM, but they all have this. So I want to get my opinions about feminism and political correctness out the way now. So if anyone's going to be hating me for my views on this, they can start early. So I do consider myself a feminist, however, with some distinctions. So being a libertarian on a social level, I do believe in freedom of speech, which normally goes against the political correctness that most feminists hold. Though I'll get onto that later. And I also believe that mainstream feminism today takes the wrong solution to the right problem. Let's look at the wage gap to understand this. It's pretty much well known by this point that the idea of a woman getting paid 25% less, or however much the value was, than a man for the same job is not directly what's happening. What the statistic actually comes from is that if you compare the sum of incomes from men and women, women overall earn less. So it's not active discrimination most of the time, but rather women going for lower paid jobs or not getting the same qualifications as men to get higher paid jobs. And the thing is with this that most people will see this and then move on, considering the problem dealt with, but I really don't think it is. Instead, it just kind of shifts the focus of the problem. So when you look at this, it very quickly becomes a lot more complicated than either kind of mainstream side are claiming. There are things deep rooted in our society and culture that are causing women to act in a certain way, and it applies to more than just jobs. Not too long ago, there was an argument between a couple big YouTubers talking about female streamers, which eventually got onto the point of why there are less female gamers and practically no female competitive players. I'll link the video in the description if you want to watch it, but it's quite long. Now, you may be thinking that this point is going off on a tangent a bit, but what I'm trying to say is that this topic that I'm talking about now covers a wide variety of things instead of just jobs, every aspect of social life, really. So what is it exactly that's causing women to act differently? Is it the material conditions that they're being brought up in, or is it how their brains inherently function? Well, research not only suggests that it's the former, but that it affects both men and women. I won't get into it too much, but essentially what it's saying is that male and female brains both start in the same way at birth, but essentially conditioned into male or female brains when they're growing up in society, and therefore resulting in different behavior and focus on different skills. What exactly it is in our culture that's causing this is really difficult to pin down, just because there are so many factors to consider, and they're probably so integrated into our lives that we don't really recognize them. The point to take away, though, is that I'm a feminist because I believe we need to change material conditions in which women, as well as men, are brought up in, to prevent this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy that we have going on today. I'm not a feminist because I believe there is inherently anyone to blame for this situation. You can't really blame anyone alive today for the material conditions we live in right now because they were established so long ago. Now, is it plausible to say that the removal of capitalism will solve this problem? I'm going to be completely honest and say I don't really know. I'm inclined to say yes, but apart from the fact that leftists would focus on equality for everyone, I can't really think of a solid reason why. I would love it if someone else could try and expand on this point and pick up on anything I might be missing on here. Right, now let's get on to the political correctness. Essentially, I believe political correctness is good, but should not be enforced for two reasons. Firstly, I believe in freedom of speech, as I said earlier, so if we're stopping people from saying certain things in the name of political correctness, it's very easy to go on to stopping people from expressing their opinions and then, suppressing actual views. The thing is, we can't censor an opinion just because we don't like it. Secondly, screaming racist or sexist at someone and then preventing them from sharing that opinion doesn't actually stop racism or sexism. This again is talking about dealing with root problems rather than just looking at the face of it. We need to find what's actually causing discrimination and deal with it directly, instead of putting our hands over our ears. I, as well as other leftists, believe that most racism, for example, stems from capitalism, and it's cultivated by the ruling class. It's much more preferable for the working class to be focused on a race war against themselves rather than to band together and focus on a class war. Getting back onto political correctness, though, I do think it should be encouraged, and if you want to have people call you by fancy pronouns, then you have every right to ask them, but you can't enforce it. Those after learning your preference and still ignore them are just arseholes, and everyone needs to deal with arseholes. So those are my views on what seems to be kind of two controversial topics in leftism. Hopefully, if you don't agree, you can at least see where I'm coming from and you can tell me why you disagree, or you can call me a brocialist or a social justice warrior or whatever you want to call me instead. But either way, thanks for watching.